West Tigers podcast, episode number 427, Wednesday night before the Tigers take on Manly at Allianz Stadium. Joined by Steve and Garry. Steve, sorry, there's no fancy introduction this week.
No, I was ready for a song and a dance, mate. I'll have to take my dancing shoes off.
Well, Steve, I have written down, because there's a lot of ex-Tigers playing at Manly, so if we do happen to win, I might bring that fancy introduction back next week, because I'm looking at Luke Brooks, Aaron Woods, all these guys, but I don't want to jinx it.
So what you're saying is that Wiggle song can be played no matter who wins
Well, I don't
on
know what the
Sunday
Wiggle
night.
song is, but you can sing it if you want.
That's all right.
Garry, how you been? Good?
Yeah, I'm always good, mate.
I
Yeah,
think
it's
that's the
been
first time I've ever asked you how you've been. So, you
yeah.
can't just
So
say
you actually care today?
dismissive. Yeah, I know. So, are you refreshed after a bye?
No. As I said on Sunday, I really missed football on the weekend watching the Tigers play. I can't wait till Sunday. I'm really looking forward to getting out to Allianz on Sunday and seeing how we go against Manly.
It was good to listen to our newest teammate, I suppose you could call him, after Sunday night. Joel and Nick were joined by Zach, Garry, and I haven't managed to get through the whole episode, but I listened to the first half an hour, and I know you're a fan of Zach.
So Zach interested you so much you didn't even finish the pod. Is
I've
that what
been
you're
busy,
saying?
Gary. I do have a job. Um,
Look, I guess that's what happens when you call someone up from Ron Massey Cup, though, isn't it?
Nick, you're talking about?
No, Zach.
Okay, that's a shot across the bows. I thought
Yeah,
you guys
Zach.
were mates.
Zach. Yeah, I like Zach, but he can have a drive by too.
Okay.
I,
And
I, listen, I listened to a half an hour as well, Eddie. I just edited out all the Nick bits.
fair enough. Big shout out to Nick. I know he's listening. He's working on green screens at the moment. I thought green screens were only put up for horses after they collapsed in races, Steve, but apparently they're used for other things as well.
Shotguns at 5 paces for Nick.
Yeah. The collab podcast, Steve, on Sunday night. It's available on YouTube on the West Tigers Life channel. It's also available on our audio platforms at West Tigers Podcast. I thought Adam Doueihi, Steve, he had little Garry had more spin than Shane Warne. Some of those political answers he was giving. Anthony Albanese would have been proud.
Yeah, I think Gary's still a bit nervous having Rob opposite him. He's waiting for a few shots across the bow. I think he's been very well behaved. But yeah,
I've been waiting for them. They just haven't come.
Adam Doueihi got a fair bit of mention. I'm sure he'll get a bit of mention tonight as well.
Are you going to have to retire from the podcast, Garry, if Adam Doueihi leads us to a premiership at 7?
No, because just like you, Eddie, I can change my opinion when new evidence presents itself.
Oh, interesting you're using that line now. But boys, let's do it's normal sort of Wednesday podcast. Might be a shorter one than usual because there's not a whole lot of news around coming off a bye, but we will obviously preview the Manly game and we'll do Steve's favourite segment, the quiz, at the end. But I was looking, Steve, at Twitter today because I'm new to Twitter and I'm not still getting my hands around how it works. But I did see an interesting post. I think it was by Tigercast, and he said the last 9 games off a bye, we are 0-9 with an average score against of 36-14. What does that tell you?
Well, that's not a very optimistic stat, is it? So let's hope the Tigers within the club know that and they're going to do something about it. Can I throw some stats at you? Is it too early for this?
I know.
If you're throwing stats at me, so we've beaten Manly last in 24 and 25 when we played them. The last 5, we're 3 from 5. They're 2 from 5. The last 3, we're 2 from 3. They're none for 3. So I'll take those stats as we head into Sunday rather than Tiger casts.
Well, I'll throw another stat back at you, Steve, since we're playing tennis at the moment. You know how many Manly have won at Leichhardt Oval in their last 4?
No.
None. None. And we are taking a game. I know it's for a good cause. It's the second of the Indigenous rounds, and there's a carnival of football at Allianz this week. And I suppose, I shouldn't be complaining because we were good enough to beat Canterbury at Combank in a home game. I was whinging about that. But Manly 0 from 4 at Leichhardt since 2015, but taking him to Allianz this week. You have a problem with that?
Yeah, I do. I hadn't even contemplated that, and I didn't realise that this would have been a Leichhardt oval game. Look, I understand that we need to think about revenue. We need to think about being financial, and I get all that, and I agree with it. I'm not going to be overly negative towards what our strategy is. But at some point, we've just got to make the eight by winning football games, and we've got to be playing at the venues that are best going to help us get 2 points. And yeah, this is an important game. Like I know we're a very, very slight chance of the eight. We're at long odds, but this is really important this weekend. And the way you've just said that, take it away from Leichhardt, doesn't seem too sensible.
Thoughts on that, Gary?
Yeah, I can't disagree with it. And it's actually going to get worse because 2027 Leichhardt's supposed to be out of action for the whole year while it gets redeveloped. And my hope is after that redevelopment, it's not going to get half the games. It's not going to get 6 games a year. It's not going to get anything like that. But hopefully they can push it out to 4 because yeah, you have a look at our results there recently, and it really shows that we are a different team when we play at Leichhardt Oval.
It's true, Gary, and I'm sort of on that side of the fence, but I suppose the good sides will argue anytime, anywhere, any time zone you can win if you're good enough.
Yeah, and we need to be better in that regard. Our record down at Campbelltown is atrocious, and I think that's a prime example of a place where we need to play better football and not be so reliant on having Leichhardt Oval. But I still do think our best performance of the year came at Combank Stadium. So we had a great performance against Cronulla out at Leichhardt, but I think that performance at Combank Stadium against the Bulldogs 2 weeks ago was probably the best we've played all year.
Just back to the original tweet by Tigercast, Steve. Coming off a bye, ordinarily, I would think, I don't know this, I probably should have looked it up, but I would think that's an advantage for most sides because you freshen up, you get away for a few days, you have a little bit more time to study for your opponents. Is this a little bit of a problem with our coach and a roster at the moment that everyone seems to exhale and relax after a victory and we can't get ourselves up from that next game?
Well, yeah, that was said the other night in the club pod. I think Gary, you mentioned it, didn't you?
Yeah,
That
I
was your
stole it
mention.
from Eddie a couple of weeks ago, so I'll give him credit for that.
Oh, okay, all right. So, yeah, that's a bit of a pattern, right? So we need to address that. We need that intensity. If we have the intensity, if we go out there at Allianz with the intensity that we showed against the Bulldogs, then we will beat Manly. I have absolute 100% confidence in that. We go out there with that intensity, we'll win the game on the Sunday. And the most frustrating thing about that Bulldogs win is that we don't get that intensity often enough. You can't get that intensity every single week. I get that, but you got to get it more often than not. And yeah, there's a pattern. We come off a win, we relax. We come off a bye, and perhaps we're not quite ready to play. Gee, we've even shown that inside of games this year. We start slow. We come out of the sheds for the second half slow. We're just not on the money from, the kickoff. So it does need to be addressed, yeah.
I've actually the last couple of days thought a lot about that trend we have of winning a game and then being poor the next game, and I think it might be a learnt habit. We've been in a situation as a club where every season we've gone on multiple really poor runs of form where we've lost 5, 6, 7, probably 8 games in a row. And then the pressure builds and builds and builds around our club, and we win a game, and it releases all that tension, and the club can relax a little bit because that extra pressure and that extra scrutiny's been removed from the club. And perhaps with some of the players, that's a learnt trait at the moment that because it's been such a relieving thing to get wins and you're able to relax a little bit after that because the pressure's gone from the club, perhaps that's become a little bit of a habit now that now we're trying to be a more successful club that we're still relaxing after we get those victories, even though the pressure may not have been the same before it. So hopefully that's something that can change soon and we can become a club that can consistently put good football together.
Yeah, that's interesting, Gary, because I reckon it's the way you look at it, right? It's mindset. Like you lose eight in a row and then you win one, or you can look at it one way and say, well, the pressure's off, or you can look at it another way and say, well, that's 1 from 9. And if you look at
Yeah,
it as 1 from 9, that's not pressure off.
yeah, but it's all that sports psychology side of it, and I think that's something as a club we've done really poorly over the last decade, and I, I think that needs to be a real focus for our club. Is about one win's not good enough. Like we've had seasons where we've won 4 games, so every win has been relieving pressure for the last couple of years. We've got to move past that now. We can't get past 2 wins in a row since 2018 or something it is. And that habit needs to change because if we're going to be a side that is playing finals football, you can't do that by winning 1, 2 games in a row. You need to get some consistency and get some performances together to really be a successful side in this competition. And I think that's part of the thing that our players and our club needs to learn at the moment.
I mean, Gary, it's easy to say, and it's probably true that it's a little bit ingrained and expectations have been low and they breathe a sigh of relief when they win. But whose responsibility is it? Is it the players' responsibility themselves? Is it the head coach? Is it the psychologist you mentioned then?
Look, I don't know what psychology people we have in our club, so it's really hard to place the blame there. It's the coach and those expectations set around what we are as a club, and and that it's almost like if we get a win, it's almost like as a coach you need to walk in the next day, and you need to absolutely belt the players and really give them a hard time to show them that look, the pressure's not off now. We've got to continue. And for me, that's how you change it. You change it by that one win isn't good enough, and you pick out the faults from that game and you tear that game apart, and you build that desire to that level of excellence that Steve's always talking about, and you strive for that level of excellence. And I think that's how you change that mindset.
Yeah, that's. I was just going to say, where weren't we excellent this week? But I don't know that I totally agree with what you said there, mate. Like you said, it's the coach's responsibility. I think it starts with the coach. The coach has got to set the expectation. But like a lot of things, mate, there's not a simple answer. It's not just the coach. It's the players have got to buy into that. They've got to
Of course
accept
they do.
responsibility, and they've got to take up that challenge. Like he might set the challenge, or it's not even him. It's the coaching team set the challenge, and they've got to take that challenge up and run with it. Right? It's no good. Maybe it is on the coach if the players aren't buying into it. Maybe you're right there, but it's everyone. It's
But
everyone.
it's about that environment as well around a victory.
Hmm.
And the coach and your senior leadership. So your senior leadership and your players is included. It's about how you show up on a Monday morning after you've got that victory over the weekend, and what steps you take in that time. If we're showing up and everyone, it's a nice easy training session because we won on the weekend, then that's something that needs to be changed. And we're just speculating here because no one's at training on a Monday morning to see kind of what that attitude is. But I think that attitude and that environment gets set by your coaching staff and senior leaders of your players.
Probably, like I said Sunday, Steve, it's the next step of the progression for me. Like we are clear of the wooden spoon, and that's a relief. But the season can be viewed different prisms over these last 4 games. Like if we finish on 8 wins or 9 wins, you can say, well, they've improved, but the roster improved as well. So did they really get better? But if we hit the ground, running and win 3 of the last 4 or 4 of the last 4 and finish with 11 or 12 wins, I think you can go into next season with a lot of momentum.
Yeah, I agree. I think there are three very winnable games in our last four. I think we'd have to be outstanding to beat Canberra. It's possible, but I think most people would expect us to go to Canberra. Are we playing them at Canberra? To
In
go to
Canberra.
Canberra, to go to Canberra and get beaten. But I don't think that's the case with the other three. We can beat the Titans, we can beat Manly, and we can beat the Cowboys. So Eddie, I reckon that's very realistic for the team to be saying 3 wins at least from here on in.
Okay. Gary, are you confident? I know we're going to preview the game in a minute, but has your confidence grown off of the back of the Bulldogs win, or do you still a bit wary given our record after victories?
Mate, we're West Tigers fans. I think the confidence always grows after a win. We're almost a Jekyll and Hyde sort of fan base. Like we start to get really excited really quickly when our clubs show some signs that they're starting to turn the corner, and then when things aren't going well, we go the opposite way really quickly as well. So there, of course, there's positivity around after that performance against the Bulldogs because I think that's the most complete effort sort of performance we've seen from this team in an awful long time. But the results after our last victories, and I didn't really realize it until you mentioned it a couple of weeks ago, Eddie, how poor it was this season. That, of course, that has me worried going into this game. I don't want to see a letdown after that Bulldogs game because I think that's what we've had for the last 10 years. We'll have a really good performance and we start to think things are improving, and then we turn around and we dish up some pathetic limp display, and it's almost harder when that performance comes after a really good win. So I think it's really crucial that we go out there and the team shows that it's not just a one trick pony that can play in the rain and things went their way against the Bulldogs and we got the victory. It's really important to show that this club is building. And I agree with Steve. I think 3 out of the next 4 is possible, but I'd be really happy if we get 2 out of the next 4 games.
I'm just wondering whether there's a possibility of anyone sending Luke Brooks or Jake Simpkin a message and getting them to file a complaint against Benji so we can get a bit of hatred against Manly before the game on Sunday. Maybe that's the motivation we need.
Yeah, it worked a couple of weeks ago. Adam Doueihi, Gary, we won't do it to death tonight, but I just read a few comments. I think it might have been a Monday's paper where he's, open to playing multiple positions. He said, I feel comfortable any position I'm in. I like being involved in the middle of the field. I feel this helps a young team. I like dictating play in the middle and being that loud voice. I feel like my style or the style we play really suits me today. But didn't say, I have to be a 6 or a 7 like in the past. Said he's open to playing lock.
Yeah, I think I mentioned the other night on the pod that after he re-signed, he said he's open to playing that 13 role and that he discussed with Benji over the off-season where they see him playing next season. So, um, yeah, I much prefer those comments than some of the other comments we've seen from him in the past. I think he's playing in the halves this weekend and hopefully has a really strong performance there again. But I am pleased to hear him speak about playing other positions as well.
I think Shane Flanagan, Steve's becoming the new Madge. I mean, everyone in the NRL off contract has met with him, but no one's decided to sign with him. So Dewey did say in the article that he met with Flanagan a few weeks ago, and I was close to going to the Red V. But do you think that lure of potentially being the 7 at the Tigers was the clincher, or the fact that he's built up relationships here and you can see the club's on the up?
Yeah, I think it's more what you just said. Then I think he's built relationships. I think he does love the club. He loves the colours. I think he's committed to the Tigers. I think he's committed to Benji and his playing group. I think he's maturing. I loved that interview, hearing him say what he said. It was so refreshing to hear that from Adam Doueihi.
What was
Because
the refreshing part of it?
that he's
The
prepared
fact
to
he
play.
loves the clubs.
He's prepared to play multiple
Okay.
positions and
Yep.
play where, like Adam Doueihi, you've wanted in the past, you've wanted to love Adam Doueihi, right? You've wanted to really get behind him, but then he said something that just turned you off a little bit. And I think he's learned from that. He copped a lot of criticism when he said he just wanted to play 6. And I think he's grown from that. And the fact that he's now saying, look, I want to be in the middle. That's where I think I can help this team best. But whatever it is, it is. I think that's awesome. I loved hearing it.
You think you'll start at 7 for the rest of the year, Gary, or do you still think it's a week to week proposition at the moment?
Yeah, I still think it's week to week proposition. You're surprised that I doubted that he would start in the 7 this week, but all the talk is Benji's fully on board with Latu being the long term 7. So, I thought it was a little not surprising, but interesting that he was picked in the 7 this week because he wasn't even
Really?
picked in.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, because
Well, I mean, of course, Benji's going to be, praise Latu, but it's coach speak, that sort of stuff. Like, he's not going to say, I don't think Latu's going to be the long term 7. He's not going to come out and say that. But I think at the moment it's an open competition.
yeah, but I don't think you know which way he's going until he makes that decision. So I'm not surprised he chose Adam Doueihi at 7, but I thought it was an interesting decision because I think it was something that, based on what he had said, could have went either way. Um, Now, what's important, the reason why I don't know whether Adam Doueihi is in that 7 role for the rest of the season, I think it's up to him. I think he needs to show consistent performance in that role. He needs to show the type of football he showed against the Bulldogs 2 weeks ago. And if he shows that, he's in the jersey right now. So the only reason why he wouldn't be in that jersey moving forward is if he doesn't maintain that standard.
So is Appy going to play 80 minutes or is Latu going to come on and relieve him and play a little bit of nine through the game? That's the
I
question,
wouldn't.
isn't it?
I think Appy will play the 80 minutes, and Latu will be used in that lock role.
Yeah, and
Which
12 go into the middle rotation. Yeah.
correct. That's my expectation based on the side that's been picked. Benji does like to have a dynamic ball player in that role. He was trying to use Jack Bird in that sort of role earlier in the year, so I expect him to use Latu in that role. And the one thing I'll say about those three guys in those positions is it hasn't quite gelled yet. When when we had Latu playing in the 7 and Doueihi playing in the 13, Latu got a little bit lost in those games, I thought. So it'll be interesting to see whether this kind of change in roles for Latu and Adam Doueihi this weekend, whether that makes that picture a little bit clearer of how they work together. Because I don't think the three of them have gelled real well at all yet.
Tigers have been criticised in the past, Steve, for sort of over-blooding rookies and even Galvin and going back to Luke Brooks in the day. So I don't mind this approach with Latu Fainu. I wasn't expecting him to shoot the lights out every week. He's missed football the last 2 or 3 years. I don't think, he's a long-term lock. I think that's a bit irresponsible if you're starting him at lock when he's 19 or 20 years old. But playing off the bench and potentially starting some games at half or having to back up Adam Doueihi and be a backup half, I don't think it's a bad plan at the moment.
No, I agree with that, and I think there's something to that. I'm not convinced that Dewey's got the 7 just because Benji's thinking Dewey's going to be our 7 moving forward. I do think it's going to be a game by game, week by week sort of scenario. I think that he's taking a little bit of pressure off Latu Fainu by putting him back at 14, and I don't think that's such a bad thing. I've got a bit of a problem, I think, with the number of players we tend to blood and so early. I know we've been fairly desperate, and I know our depth isn't great, and we're sort of clutching at straws sometimes. Like I'd like to see the other fella. What's his name? Just gone blank.
Macassini.
Yeah, Magazzini. I would like to see him play the rest of the season in reserve grade when his schoolboy stuff's finished. I don't want to see him blooded at this stage unless we were playing for an eighth spot and we had injuries and absolutely he was the last one. I just think we need to be a little bit more careful bringing these guys through.
Going back to that point about Latu in the lock position, I think it's fairly clear that was the kind of plan earlier in the year. Until Galvin left, the plan quite obviously was Latu playing that lock role and developing into that position because that's what he was doing while Galvin was still at the club. And even after Galvin left, he played quite a number of games where Latu was still coming on and playing that 13 role. And some of the best attacking football we've played this year has been with Latu playing that 13 role and straightening up the attack and then feeding it out to the halves.
Big
So
ask, Gary, though, to ask a 20-year-old to do that consistently.
I agree. I think that's why he's starting on the bench in that role and not starting the game. It's allowing Twelve to take a little bit of heat out of the start of the game, and for him to come on when it's not quite as difficult in the middle. But we spoke the other day about Adam Doueihi in that 13 role, and I spoke about Yo and his ability to be able to run for 150 meters if the situation required it. Latu's not a guy who can do that either. He's not going to be a guy who, for example, in that wet game against the Bulldogs on the weekend, if you have him playing that lock role, he's not going to be able to just tuck the ball under his wing and push out 150 meters for you. So he is more of a ball player than he is of an impact runner, though he does have an attacking threat as a runner. So that kind of helps in his role as a ball player and it helps your outside, your halves and 5'8" a little bit more because he's a threat to run the ball attackingly. That means defenses have to hold off your halves a little bit longer. So I think that's what the benefit you get out of him playing that 13 role. You don't get the ability to run for a large amount of meters.
You mentioned Macassini, Steve. He's obviously available now. He's 18 years old. There was a little bit of Tuesday press that he might be debuting this week, but that was off the money by your mate, the Mole. He was off
Yeah,
the money again, not
he
from
was.
surprise, surprise.
Yeah, he researched that well, didn't he, the mole? Missed
But
that one.
yeah, I don't know. I just think it's case by case, and I'm not going to say I'm an expert in watching him play because I've never seen him play a full game in my life, but I have seen him. He's a physical, he's not going to struggle physically for one game. So I would think, and I'm guessing, I reckon they're going to debut him against the Cowboys. I read something, I don't know if it's true, that he had contractually obliged to play for his high school this week. You know, Newington College, that'll be a big game against Sydney boys or some of those students that are studying to get 99, not expecting to come up against an NRL player. But I don't know if that's true, but I still think he will debut this year. And I would look to debut him in our safe haven at Leichhardt Oval against a side that's not overly physical and will have 99% of the support there. So I would give him a taste.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that's what's going to happen. I'm just a little bit concerned. Just look at our recent history of doing it. It's not working for us, you know. And there's going to be people out there that are going to say, no, when you're ready, you're ready, and just play. And they'd be able to cite lots of examples of guys that have played while they were still at school and made a huge career. I'm just thinking, you know, I just keep going back to Harry Grant. I just think the way Harry Grant was brought through, I know Melbourne are in a much stronger position and maybe have had the time to be able to blood him the way they did. But when he arrived at first grade, he was ready for first grade, and it just concerns me that we burn these guys a little bit.
Gary, Talon De Silva's game on the weekend, was that justification for the club in letting him go mid-season and going for Happy Coruscant until the end of 2028 or not?
He was really poor on the weekend, and I can't say I didn't enjoy it. I watched the end of that game sitting next to you, Eddie, before we went and recorded, and it was enjoyable to see happen. But I could only say it would be justification if we had a better backup than Christian Hope. And I think we're in a difficult spot if he's going to be our backup hooker for next season. I think we need to go to market and get someone to improve that spot on our roster.
Wouldn't be the last West Tigers or ex-West Tigers player to get a spray from Mitchell Moses, Steve. He didn't just go once; he went three times at him. They were like, I think that's on. I know it's not Parramatta podcast, but it's an interesting dynamic that because Talon De Silva is a running nine, and he's now playing with a guy who wants the ball all the time.
Mm, mm. Look, I think it could be a real learning curve for Talon De Silva. Um, I don't blame Mitchell Moses for what he did, the way he did. He's supremely competitive. Most first grade footballers are supremely competitive, and he wanted the ball and didn't get it. I think Talon Silva's got to learn that he's a young buck and he's playing with a bunch of players that have got a lot more experience than him. And sometimes he's just got to pull his head in and give the ball when he's told someone wants it. Hopefully well, for his sake, hopefully he learns from it. But as far as Tigers are concerned, couldn't care less.
Few comments on the forum, West Tigers podcast forum, the last 5 or 6 days, Gary, in regards to Joel put up a topic, top recruitment priority for 2026. I'm just going to read some of them out and then you can react to them. London Tiger said we need a minimum of two impactful front rowers. We need a lock forward and a bridge hooker, which would be one that can get us through whilst Appy's still going and before young Hayward is ready. Mike said we need a physical line busting front rower, possibly two. Dirty Reds just said middles. Mr. Anonymous 26 said we need a line busting enforcing prop, maybe a lock, not keen on AD there, and a utility off the bench. Lorenzo reckons the reality of our salary cap slash roster spots means we probably only have room potentially for one decent middle. Rusty 63 mentioned a few young guys in Flegg that are going well that might be a couple of years away. I won't read their names out tonight, but I might do in a future podcast. Teddy S said we still lack some leadership. His biggest bugbear is our relationship of our senior players or middles with officials. But Gary, fairly unanimous there from the fans and the listeners out there.
Yep, and I can't disagree at all. That middle, that impactful prop, I think is the difference between us being not just a genuine top eight chance, a proper top eight side for next year. If we can go get that guy who can damage a defensive line, then I'll be tipping us to make the eight next year. I think it comes down to that position. I'd love two of them. I don't think we're going to get two of them. Um, and it's really important when a guy who can make a difference in that position becomes available, that we're in the mix to get them. And there's a guy who over the weekend said he's going to be negotiating, and that's not for next year, but you never know. Maybe we can do a little bit of work and get him early. Um, I think we should be looking
Who's
at
that, Gary?
Tino. I think we should be having a look at Tino. He's going to cost a lot of money,
At
but
1.5.
I know
Dragons
one point
apparently have put a mammoth offer
that's
to him.
just crazy. So,
Yeah.
if it's not him, it needs to be someone who can damage a defensive line because that's what we're lacking. And I think that's the difference between us being a certainty for the top eight next year.
It's all, I mean, it's always important, Steve, to get your roster right, but particularly the next few years is not going to be easy to recruit because you've got two new clubs coming in. You got, I think there's a new TV deal coming in a couple of years, so players are going to be locked up long term once that new TV deal comes in and salary cap goes up. So I think we're in a reasonable spot at the moment, but do we have to hope like last year, Terrell May drops out of the tree in November? Are we holding something back and hoping something like that happens? Because there's not a lot on the market in terms of off contract at the moment for next season.
No, there's not. And maybe we have to get to November and skip a year and buy the person for the year after. Like I've said before, I think it's important that we get the right person, not the first person that's available. And because then that person ties up a roster spot for the next couple of years, and we can't get the person that we actually needed. So, I'm like Gary. I want that middle forward, and I want them tomorrow. But if we have to wait, we have to wait. We just got to get them. Like we said this before. Our backline, if we can hold them, um, hold it for a couple of years is almost set, if not set. It's a good back line. We just need that forward momentum. We just need a couple of purchases in the middle, and we've got a bit of depth, and we've got a very competitive team. And I'm the same. Prop is number one for me. I'd be looking at a 13. We need a backup hooker, and I still think. I know we've bought our two second rowers. We've got Sam Weller, and then we've got Kaipi Sport coming. I know we're sort of like gone all in on them, but I'm still just a little bit worried we're going to lack a little bit of penetration out there. We need someone wide running back rower who's a little bit more dangerous, I reckon.
I don't think we'll be looking at any more second rowers, Steve. I think we've gone with the guys who we think are going to be out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think we will either, but I'm just worried about it.
Gary, we can't hear you at the moment. You've dropped out. You all right? Gary's got some issues, Steve. Let's just continue while Gary. Tiger Town SFS said Keon Kalamatangi. Now, I'm talking about guys that are off contract at the end of 2026. That'd be a good signing.
No, that would be an awesome sign if we could get him. Yeah.
He'd be 29 at the end of 2020 or start of 2027.
Yeah, in his prime. As I said, we just might have to wait that 12 months, which is what no one wants to do. But the way the system works at the moment, what else do we do? Maybe get them in November, sign them up for the year after, and try to agitate for an early release. Maybe that's the way to do it.
Tui Kamakamitha, Gary from the Melbourne Storm. He's off contract at the end of 2026. A bit of a, Fijian connection there with Appy and a few of the boys.
Yeah, hopefully you can hear me now, but it does have that connection. So I think he's probably a guy that we can use people at our club to at least get in his ear. And I think that's what we've done with recruiting over the past 12 months. If you have a look at the guys we've recruited, they've had links to players at our club. So it may be an avenue to go down. Um, but I really believe we need to go prop and then we probably need to look prop again. So I wouldn't even be looking anywhere else other than those, trying to get two props heading into next season as the first priority.
Okay. Well, this might not happen next season, but Steve, these are the guys that are free to negotiate in November under the current rules, and I'll read them all out. I'll just hand cherry pick some ones out, and you tell me which ones might be realistic Broncos, Payne Haas is off contract, end of 26. The Bulldogs, Viliami Kikau and Kurt Mann are off contract. The Sharks, Cameron McInnes and Talakai are off contract. The Roosters, Angus Crichton and Cesar Wong. Titans, Dave Fafita. Panthers, Luke Garner. Eels, Junior Paulo. Anyone there?
Oh, that's
It's an all-star list. A few of
yeah,
them.
that's a list out of heaven, isn't it? Really. Well, let's just look at Payne Haas because I mentioned Payne Haas before. Why wouldn't we go after Payne Haas? Like you say, realistic. Well, what's realistic? You throw decent money. We have got a decent squad now. We've got guys that can attract other players. Benji seems to be able to attract these players. Why not go after the very best? Why say, well, what's realistic? Who are the most important players for us in that list and go for them? Payne Haas, Kickow, I'd go for Kickow tomorrow if I could get him. I think he's a great footballer.
The Bulldogs seem to have no salary cap because apparently they're in the market for Tino. So someone like Kickow surely gets squeezed out.
Have to. There's no way they could add Tino to that roster without losing someone
They're already getting
significant.
that Newcastle prop next year. I can't remember his name, but he's a good player as well.
They might send Galvin back.
To where?
Magpies.
Boys, let's talk about, before we get to the game, actually, let's go straight to the game. Sunday, Allianz, 2 p.m. Manly, they've got a 23-15 overall head-to-head record against the West Tigers, but like I mentioned before, they had lost their last four at Leichhardt Oval, but this is the West Tigers game at Allianz. Last time we met Gary, it was a disappointing performance. We lost
It was.
28-10, but that was just a schmozzle of a game. We were playing musical chairs. We had guys out. It was, I think you could put a red pen through that, I'm hoping.
And I don't think Manly were that good in that game
No, they
either.
weren't.
We
It
were
was a
just
terrible
really
first half.
poor. I think if we had played any decent sort of football, we would have won that game. That's what gives me a bit of confidence going into this weekend. I know our form line isn't that long, but the performance last week, it gives me hope that Manly's a side that we can not travel, a side that we can trouble and really put some pressure on Luke Brooks. We know he doesn't perform under pressure. I think it's a game that we can come away with a win in.
It's one of those fellow sort of middle teams, Steve, and I'd like to think we're starting to join that bracket of the middle teams. We've been a bottom team for the last 5 or so years, but Manly are a team that are fringe eight, probably on the outside. And I think that's, again, talking about progression, is consistently trying to beat those teams that you're going to be competing potentially with for top eight.
And this is a team that we line up pretty well against player for player. Like they're not going to massively dominate us at the ruck unless we are really passive. If we come out with any level of intensity, we can at very least match them. Their starting front row pair are good, solid front rowers, but they're getting older. All right, they're going to run out of juice a little bit earlier. If we really take it to them with good line speed, and really run them around a little bit, we can get on top in that forward pack. And once we get on top in the forwards, then you know what happens after that. But we've got to watch a couple of their guys that are stars. Obviously, Turbo. Got to watch Sav. Got to watch the halves, and stop them from having that individual brilliance. But I think from a matchup perspective, we can definitely get on top of them if we come with any level of intensity.
I think over the past 2 to 3 games, we've done a really good job early in the game of coming out of our own end by shifting the ball to our edges and actually making yardage on our edges. And as the games have gone on, we're going away from that. I think that's a tactic that could work really well against Manly this weekend. Move their forwards around a little bit. I think that will allow us in that first 20-minute period where typically we've struggled with yardage. I think that may be a good plan to go with again this weekend.
Yeah, and I wonder, Gary, if putting Sione on an edge is part of that plan. That
Yeah.
we're going to, rather than hitting him through the middle, we're going to hit him too wide out on the edge, which and Fainu on the other, Samuel on the other side, obviously.
And I think Sione did a really good job of that role against the Bulldogs. So I'm really interested to see how he can continue in that role out on the edge. He's showing a lot of versatility this year because I would have him as starting prop for us right now. and now we've moved him to an edge, and he's starting on the edge. So it's been a fantastic year for a guy who, heading way into the off season last year, wasn't even signed.
Looks like Stafford Toa's back, Steve. I guess we'll find out on Sunday whether he does play, but I guess his form's dipped a bit over the past month. You'd like to see a reaction after Nathan put in a pretty solid performance against Bulldogs.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know whether he's been well. He was playing injured, but we know he had that problem with his arm, wasn't it? His elbow or something.
Elbow.
So, yeah, so hopefully that's rectified and he's back to full fitness and he can get back to that early season form. But yeah, he's got a little bit of pressure on him, but I think he's done enough this year to maintain his spot.
And I think Buller being back, Toa hasn't played with Buller since he came back from injury. So I think that will benefit Toa. I think in attack he was really struggling without the pressure that having Buller go out onto that right edge takes away from Toa and the space it gives him. So I expect a better game attackingly from him. What's really important is he improves his defense, which was quite ordinary in the last game he played against the Panthers.
Safar obviously missing suspended, Steve, so there's a little bit of shuffling in that pack. I think Fanua Pile's another one who's going to be out for a big game because he's been disappointing the last 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah, yes, he needs to really start the game strong and show us that impactful running that he can present. And he's also got to watch his D. He can miss a tackle in the middle quite often, Polo. So he's got to be on the ball in that regard. But we've got 12 starting at 13, but he'll move into the middle at some stage. And I'm really impressed with the way he's been playing. What worries me with our forward pack is our bench. I mentioned on the other pod the other night on the collab pod, we've got too many players that sort of just drop when they get hit at the line, and I sort of put Charlie Murray and Tony Suker in that category at this stage of their career, and I just want them to go out there and be a little bit more impactful.
Yeah, Pole for me, I tend to forget that he's only 22, and I think for a guy playing in the middle and starting as he did in the season, I think towards the back end of this season, it's just getting a bit long for him, and he's starting to get a bit ragged, especially defensively. So I'm hoping he spent the last couple of weeks coming off the bench. I'm hoping that's going to kind of help him get out of this slump he's in. But I think he's probably in for a long end to the season. I think he's just at that point where he's looking for the end of the season.
Gary, Steve mentioned the bench: Latu Fainu, Royce Hunt, Charlie Murray, Tony Suker. Few fans quite underwhelmed by that bench. Could we have done anything different there?
It's really hard. We are light on troops. It's hard to say. Like Seyfarth being out for a suspension kind of means you're calling up the likes of Charlie Murray, and I don't think he's been very impressive during the year. We did pick him in one of the games he played earlier in the year. He actually came on and played as a bench hooker. So that may be an option for him this week too, if they're looking to get Appy a bit of a break. But we are definitely lacking some impact on that bench, and yeah, it's going to be a game where you probably need someone like Terrell May playing that 80 minutes.
The Manly side, Steve, like I was really disappointed our last clash against them because I thought their pack's quite weak on paper. They've got a lot of injuries and we got dominated at Brookvale. But looking at them, their strength is their backline. They've got a lot of pace. They've got Lehigh Hopewadi back. They've got the Kohler in the centres. Turbo's back at fullback. I know he's a little bit busted, but that's the concern I have is going from a really wet track against Canterbury to potentially a dry day against Manly. They can spin the ball.
Yeah, if it's a dry track and the ground's not chopped up, a lot of people are saying that by the time we play, it's going to be fairly chopped up. But if it's a dry track, then yeah, we're gonna struggle a little bit. We have to be really on our game. That just makes it more important to win the ruck. We need our line speed to be fast. We need to give them as least time as possible, and we've got to watch those weapons. Like Travojevic when he comes into the back line. We've got to watch Saab. We've got to watch that centre, Carla. I don't know how you say his name.
Ola.
Yeah, Kola Hopewadi. He's very dangerous. But that's going to be right out on the edge, right? So we've just got to keep our line. We've got to not put our defensive line pushed in. We've got to stay wide, stay straight and fast. We've got to be fast line speed. That's how we'll negate that. Put pressure on Brooks and Cherry Evans. The other thing, Eddie, is they're not a team that is playing with any sort of confidence or togetherness. Manly, it's obvious that they're not a happy camp for whatever reason, whether it's the Cherry Evans stuff. So if we come out there with intensity and really give it to them and get them backpedaling, we can get on top early, and then I think no matter how fast they are, they'll lose their confidence and we can get on top and go through them.
Yeah, they look like a Seabold coach side at the moment for me. Like they never seem Seabold coach sides never seem to be teams that get on well. They never have great
A lot of
harmony.
talent, no substance, a little bit.
Correct.
Like, I don't want to
Yeah.
jinx it this week because they have potential to put big scores on teams, Gary. But I actually look at the change, and I think Jake Trbojevic is just about finished. But I still think he's a big out for them because he's one of their few. He's like a spirit animal for them, you
Yeah.
know. He's a guy who leads their line speed, and without him, I was happy when he was missing this game.
Yeah, and he's the type of guy that we struggle to handle. He's got a little bit of footwork. He's quite powerful, and yeah, I'm not disappointed to see him out of the game. So, um, and his brother's the same. So Turbo being back at fullback, I think he's not the player he was a couple of years ago. But he's a big guy with size and speed and can bust a tackle, and he's the type of guy we often struggle against. So he does worry me as well.
Right, Steve, I've given up on predictions. I no longer predict games, but what do you seem fairly confident if we're at our best, we can win?
Yeah, if we're at our best, I think we can beat them. I think we can beat them quite well. I'm going to say 24-14. But I'm going to
That,
say
Gary,
this.
or
I don't know. I'm not a betting man, Eddie. You can help me out on this. But what would be the odds that Cherry Evans will put a kick into the right corner for Saab to come over the top and score a try?
yeah, not great. The odds would be for that, but Manly are a favourite. They were about a 4 point favourite. That's come in a little bit, Gary. So there's a little bit of money for the Tigers. I know it's not your money, but how do you feel confidence wise?
I would feel a lot more confident if I wasn't worried about our ability to back up from a win. This is a game that, if we're serious about being an improved side this year, I think it's a game that we should expect to win. So, what I really want to see is a strong performance, and I don't care if we win by 1 point, but a strong performance and get out of Allianz Stadium on Sunday night with a win.
Quiz time, boys. Question number one is multiple choice. Which of these winning points have we put on the Sea Eagles at Brookvale? Hint: there could be one or more. A is 32, B is 34, C is 36, and D is 38. Gary, I'll start with you.
32.
Steve?
Well, it could be one or more. So I'll say C and D.
Well, you got one of them, Steve. You got D, 38. We beat them 38-12 in 2003. The other answer was B. It was a big comeback, 34-32. I think I remember Adam Doueihi plucking a bomb in the last few minutes to get us over the line after we were well behind.
So, so last quiz, Steve didn't get one right, and now he's
He's
got
up
one
on
in
you
the first
already.
question. Wow.
Question two, true or false? The West Tigers had a bye during their infamous, I don't know why it's infamous, 2005 eight-match winning streak. I would just say famous.
True.
False.
It was true. Streak started in round 16 and finished in round 24, which is technically 9 weeks. The bye was in round 19.
Yeah, I remember that.
All right, this one, you've just got to throw names out there because I reckon you'll get a few of them. Name the nine West Tigers players who we directly signed from the Manly Sea Eagles, and I'll give you a clue. There was three in 2000 right off the bat.
Matt Ballon, Terry Hill, Hopewati.
That's three.
The halfback.
You're gonna have to do better than that, Steve. The halfback. You're gonna have to,
That's the
that could
best.
be
That's the best you're getting. Halfback.
it. There was three. You've mentioned Hill and Hopewati from 2000. I don't expect you boys to get Stephen Crouch. He played in the back row from 2000 to 2002. There was a back rower who played a little bit of rugby who came over in 2006, a bit of a big name at the time. Played for the Waratahs, I think. Played for Man.
Yeah, Sam Harris.
Sam Harris is correct. Steve, I'm sure the halfback you were referring to was Jack Littlejohn in 2016 and 2017, obviously.
That was him. Yeah.
Matt Ballin was 2016, 2017. Peter Godinay, the great Peter Godinay, who played some games
Steve,
Oh,
your
did I miss
favourite
that?
player.
Cleary. And there's a current one who come from Manly. He played first grade, one of the brothers.
Oh, Fainu. Sam.
Which one? Sam.
Sam.
Sam Finan, 2024 to present. Question 4 is nearest to the pin. What is the lowest amount of points we've scored on the Silvertails and still won the game? Steve.
6.
7.
It was 14. We beat them 14-12 in 2011 up at Gosford, trailed 12-0 at half time. Last question, who am I? I was born in Sydney in 1976. Debuted with Balmain in their first NRL game. So the NRL competition started in what year, Gary?
90. NRL was 98.
98. You're correct in that. I featured in 28 games for Balmain. Made my one and only West Tigers appearance as the starting halfback on the night Jared McCracken got spear tackled. I remember that game was against
Down
the
in Melbourne.
Storm. I joined the Northern Eagles for their last 2 NRL licensed seasons. I had a year stint at their rivals, the Parramatta Eels. So there you go. He's played for a lot of clubs. Balmain, West Tigers, Northern Eagles, Parramatta. And I finished my career at the Manly Seagulls, featured in 70 games and retired in 2007. Often a halfback who could also play hooker. In 2005 was charged with contrary conduct for supposedly spitting at Eels player PJ Marsh. Shane Dunley is my name.
Oh, yeah, I do. Okay. Yeah.
Very tricky
I
one.
had that. I was waiting for you to ask.
Like
I know.
Jack Littlejohn, Steve, you had it
Yeah, Shane
straight
Dunlop.
away. All right, boys, that's it for tonight. Are you off to Allianz Stadium on the weekend, Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. Be there for
The corporate boxes again?
there for. No, I don't think so. Not at this stage, unless
Could
anyone wants to
change,
invite
though.
me.
Could change. Not at this stage, he said there, Gary. Did you notice that?
Yeah, he's fishing for an invite by the sounds of it.
All right, boys. Well, I hope we can get a victory, and Joel and the boys will be back Sunday night. So thank you for tonight.
Thanks, boys.